I don't think this is an over-exaggeration saying that this is probably the most controversial series that I've covered in a while, and even though I will not be presenting them in this video, if you are somebody who's not a fan of series that show things to you, then you definitely want to stay away from this one. But in this video, I don't really want to make that the focus of the video, but if not more so, talk about what I think the series is really trying to convey behind all of that. And then there's also the usual drill: like, comment, subscribe, all of that. But without further ado, let's get into it. To sort of put you through my roller coaster when reading this story, it was, okay, another work by Inio Asano. I've heard stuff about this one. I really like Solanin, absolutely adore Punpun. Let's see what this one's like. Got into it, through a good chunk of it. I was like, wow, this is, what am I reading? Near the end, I broke down in tears once again. The man's 3 for 3. I have a very strong love-hate relationship with Asano. And afterwards, now giving it a few hours, just really thinking about the story, now I'm wondering how I'm supposed to talk about this in a video. The manga in question is A Girl on the Shore. It's a short read around 20 chapters. It's about these two characters, Isobe and Kome, both in their mid-teens, and they live in this small, just chill town, right? The story starts off with Kome being turned down by the guy she had just sort of given her purity to in Misaki, someone who's clearly just using her, right? He's the popular guy. He could use whatever girl he wants. And upon being turned down and clearly heartbroken, she now turns to Isobe, the other primary character of the story, who she had previously just rejected, and now these two participate in this friends with benefits sort of relationship. Now, this is why the story gets really uncomfortable. I already said earlier that both of these characters were in their mid-teens, and yet this story does not shy away at all from showing you in all of its detail what happens between these two characters and what they end up participating in when it comes to having intercourse with each other. And because of the graphic nature of the story, many times I think people would read this and that becomes the instant focus, because that's what's instantly thrown at you. And yet the meaning and the purpose behind all that could really go missing if you don't pay attention to what's actually happening within these characters. Because as Isobe continues to explore and continue to do all of these weird, very, very weird and honestly sometimes just gross things, Kome, who, you know, said she wasn't going to develop any sort of feelings for him, ends up developing feelings for him. And there's a whole other thing with Isobe's older brother where we found out he actually killed himself. And we also find out that's due to bullying. And so Isobe wants to sort of find a way to avenge his brother and has the desires to kill himself because his mom isn't present, his father isn't present in his life. And so you have these two characters who participate in this because they're really trying to fill a void within themselves without getting attached to each other. And that sort of thing can be very toxic and damaging when you're an adult, let alone when you're in your teens and all that sort of emotional instability and confusion. One character, their family isn't present at all, extreme loneliness, has the internet all to himself to explore God knows what, and the girl had just been completely heartbroken by someone she had a crush on and just used. And these two start playing with fire, pretending that they won't get burned. And that's what happens when Kome starts developing feelings for Isobe throughout the more and more times they end up participating in all sorts of things. Both of them try to find something in each other and end up getting something completely different. And just like the other works of Asano, I think his stories can feel extremely uncomfortable because also how real they feel. You have a character in Isobe who's clearly depressed, and due to his loneliness is why he does the things he does. And Kome is, I mean, she's really just heartbroken and clearly emotionally confused. And the damages and the harm that can come from, again, playing with fire at such a young age is something that I think a lot of us have experienced. Whether it's something like pornography, simply doing it too early because, you know, you felt peer pressured, whether it was whatever it was, many of us in our lives have been exposed to experiences that at the time you just don't know what to do. I mean, you're young, you're growing, you don't, and that sort of thing can have very negative effects throughout the rest of your life. And this story deals with that, and it deals with how these two characters grow and learn from their experiences and what they go through, because not everybody is fortunate to go through life avoiding problems just because they know somebody else went through it. sometimes you have to learn things the hard way, and both of these characters do. And so as the relationship goes on between these two characters, Isobe isolates himself, saying that he doesn't really need her anymore, and Kome keeps trying to write him letters and send him messages saying that she has developed feelings for him. But in the end, the two don't end up together, but their experience with each other allowed them to grow as people, which is what happens in life. We have negative experiences that, in a weird way, when we look back on them, those are experiences that were necessary for us in order to grow, in order to mature. And so Isobe grows out of his lonely, depressed state, and Kome ends up in another relationship where she's changed due to her knowing Isobe. And that's the part that I think really got me, was that as much as we want to move on from past relationships, they mark us, and we're forever changed by them. I wouldn't even classify the relationship with Isobe and Kome as a negative one. Clearly, you know, they're like I said, they were playing with fire and try to pretend like they wouldn't get hurt from it. But I think that they both ended up having a positive impact on each other. And so even though this story, I think, goes into the dangers and the effects of trying to have an intimate relationship with someone while taking the intimacy out of it, I think it really does push forward even more is the effects that relationships with other people can leave on us for the rest of our lives. Both of them try to get into this relationship without letting it affect them, without letting them change them, but they got into the relationship for something and got something completely different out of it. And it's, despite it being a toxic relationship where there's a lot of projecting on both sides, I do think that in the end it served them well. It's really a roller coaster, especially through that middle portion. Like I said, I was just there like, what am I reading? But in the end, after seeing Isobe overcome his loneliness and seeing Kome allowing her new boyfriend to kiss her, where before when she was with Isobe wouldn't let him do that, it showed that people move on and change. When I tell you this story managed to really nail that in 20 chapters, I mean it. These two characters do things where it's very evident just how close and personal they got. Ironically, despite the fact that they were trying to stay so emotionally distant from each other, it's really, it again goes to show the confusing nature of things like that. You never enter and leave a relationship the same person, for better or for worse. And so even though this story was without a doubt the most uncomfortable read I've had in a very, very long time, Asano once again was able to provide me with characters that felt really real and in a setting that immersed me immensely and invested me in the outcome of both of these characters. And once again, he emotionally hit me where it hurts. I think in the category of short manga, I don't know if you would categorize that to like up to 30 chapters. I don't know what the limit is. You also got to take into consideration page differences per chapter. I think this is the best short, quote-unquote, manga that I've read ever. But in comparison to like Oyasumi Punpun, I don't think I have it up there with that. I think it's better than Solanin for me personally, but Punpun is still, I mean, yeesh. As always, this has been The Masked Man. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day, and peace.